Hey, baby, you must have gave me coronavirus because you take my breath away. Hey, honey, you can't spell virus without you and I. You might have COVID, but the most contagious thing about you is your smile. Baby, remember before you can't spell virus without you and I? Honey, you can't spell quarantine without URAQT. Even though I have no job, baby, you're giving me a stimulus package right now.
Dynamite! It's Dynamite! Wednesday night, Dynamite! So Dynamite! This is awesome! It's this, it's that, it's this! Yeah, everybody, have a great time! It's Dynamite! I'm not one of these f***ing
Okay, apparently there is a little bit of an echo going on. All right, let's see. And you know, this sucks because, all right, there's no echo. No echo. Oh, you know what? Actually, I know the reason why. I know the reason why. That's all my fault. It's all my fault. I tell you, I'm not used to NXT going off the air at 10:03. That literally gives me 2 minutes to shut everything down, race in here, turn everything on, and, get the show going. But, all right. So everybody says, that's what I get for trying to replay a little bit of my stand-up work from late Monday night. Look, you go until 2 in the morning Monday night when you've been up since 6 in the morning and you got to get up at 6 and the show is still going because we're having loads of fun. I figured, we could share it tonight. Wasn't meant to be. Wasn't meant to be. We don't need no intros. We don't need no stinking intros. Good evening, everybody. This is episode 55 of Wednesday Night Dynamite. I shouldn't have to look at the date today because it is my bro's birthday. So if I got the date wrong today, there'd be a problem. I'm Don Tony, as always. AEW just went off the air. 1 year anniversary. I got to be honest with you. I did not enjoy AEW as much as I thought I would tonight. NXT, I didn't enjoy NXT as much as I thought I was good at tonight. I don't know. I mean, yeah, Finn Balor is injured, and, I talked about this briefly on Monday, and I'm going to continue it now. I think this guy's got to be stripped of his title. Because, yes, Karrion Kross's injury was a hell of a lot worse than Finn Balor's. But as I mentioned on Monday, if you actually look online and, look, there's WebMD and there's tons of doctors that have performed surgery for broken jaws, but there's actually a lot of great websites that have to do with like boxing, MMA, karate, full contact sport, and they talk about broken jaws as well. And, a lot of boxers have experienced broken jaws, MMAs, fighters, and, they get into really explicit detail how long it takes to heal in different circumstances. And to be honest with you, I know on TV tonight, William Regal for the storyline, we're going to wait a few weeks and see what happens. Look, I'll be totally honest with you. When you tear a muscle and you're recovering from it, if you are healed and you work out like a sick mofo, like Remember Triple H when he tore his quad? Came back sooner than expected. When some people, are a little bit lackadaisical about their recovery or they're very, very cautious, they may actually return longer. Of course, some people could hit roadblocks, setbacks, and that could make them come back longer. But a broken bone is a broken bone. And a broken jaw in 2 spots is still a broken jaw. And when you look at all of the medical websites, in the best case scenario, 2 to 4 weeks to basically, have some healing going on. It's not like they have a crack and they fill it with cement, or they have a crack and they put a plate on this side and a plate on this side and bolt it together so everything is stuck together. No, if you put screws in your jaw, your bone has to heal around the screws. See this? I don't think I've ever said this publicly. Right here, these 3 teeth, that's a bridge. All right? Some of you know this story already. When I was like 8 years old, I was hanging out in my parents' basement with my friend and my little friend. And we had downstairs a big pool table, dartboard, arcade games. And by the way, that arcade game tonight, there was one thing that was absent in that segment with Miro, and, we'll talk about that later. I don't know if anybody picked up on it. The video game that broke tonight, I'll give extra credit if anybody out there could pick up on something that was wrong with it today. And don't tell me that the power wasn't on. There was something else. But going back to the story, when I was 8, I was in the basement, and I was playing pool, and my friend Joey was shooting darts, throwing darts. So as I'm playing pool, he says, Blas. That was my nickname back in the day. Blas. And I turn around, and I look at him, and he pretends to throw a dart at me. So what do? I duck. And the edge of the pool table is right below me. So when I ducked, this is what happened. And my front tooth cracked in half. So what ended up happening was the doctor had to take the tooth out, put a screw up in my gum, up into my, I guess, the jawbone or whatever bone this is over here, and put a fake tooth. And I had that fake tooth for about 20 years. And then when I was like right around 30, they took it out and they put in a different one. Because honestly, when you have an 8-year-old tooth, when you're 8 years old and you're 28, your teeth might look a little bit different. Point is, when I got this bridge done about 1.5 years ago, they had to take out the screw that has been in my bone since I was 8 years old. And for about 2 months, they couldn't put this bridge in. They needed the bone time to heal. If they would have put in the bridge early, there's no screw up here. There's no screw. The bridge is actually glued to this tooth, and this has nothing supporting it. That's why I got to be careful. If I eat something really, really hard, this could snap in half. But still, I had to wait almost 2 months, because if they would have put in the bridge early, when your jawbone, the bones in your mouth heal, it could expand, it could contract, and I could have looked ridiculously bad after this. And once they cement it, it ain't coming out. The only way it comes out is if you break it off. So Finn Balor, with this surgery, even if it heals nicely 2-3 weeks from now, what are you going to do? You still have to wait numerous weeks after. This guy may not defend the NXT title for a month, month and a half, 2 months. And, how do you get around that? Do you do BS finishes? You do a long-ass story. I don't know how that's going to fly as far as NXT fans go. Why is he so foggy? So I don't think the title is cursed. Some of you are convinced that the title is cursed after Keith Lee, leaving, what happened to Cross. Look, injuries happen. It just so happened that 2 champions in a row got injured. But I don't think that title is cursed. But, you really have to be very careful, Finn Balor, because I think I'm exaggerating. Go on some websites and look what happens if your jawbone does not fully heal and you return to boxing or karate or MMA and it re-breaks, especially after you had surgery and you had metal implanted, it could disfigure your face. It's not a joke. So, I think right now, in my honest opinion, there ain't going to be a message from God, that Finn Balor's jaw miraculously is 100% 2-3 weeks from now. I think WWE doesn't know what to do at this point. Right now, you look at that roster, who would you put the NXT Heavyweight Championship on right now? Seriously. They're in the middle of doing a storyline where Adam Cole had broken ribs and everything else. Chat, by the way, shout out to everybody live. And I thank you all for joining me tonight. Everybody on the archive, thank you as well. But, see, chat, okay, good one. Ciampa. Loomis, I like it too. But you saw what happened tonight. They're in the middle of a feud with Dexter Loomis and Cameron Grimes. How do you go from there to the title? Yes, you could just do another tournament. I think we're all sick of NXT tournaments. And I'll be honest with you, I'm also sick of NXT, I don't want to curse tonight, but clusterfuck finishes. I mean, how many times have we talked over the last few months that you have a long, competitive, great match, and more times than not with titles involved, just to have someone to do a bullshit run-in? You had two of them tonight that really, really annoyed the shit out of me. Shotzi Blackheart versus Candice LeRae. And look, we sung the praise for Candice LeRae on the last pay-per-view and even some of her recent work. Remember the chat that night? Nobody knew that Candice LeRae has been wrestling for 18 years. So, she, I think, had a chip on her shoulder. And she is very, very able to hold the championship. But you have Shotzi Blackheart, who is hosting Halloween Havoc. And you felt like, okay, if she's hosting Halloween Havoc, I can't see her having a match also with Io Shirai, because in storyline, you have a title match, you're preparing, you're not going to be all throughout the night, whatever she does. Man, that was bad. So you have them have a great match just to have Indy Hartwell give Candice LeRae like brass knucks or whatever it was. Did I look like a goof just now doing that? Goof. Next week, everyone, next week, we will start celebrating Halloween. You got to find me some ideas on Amazon Prime so I could get it in a day or two. Let me know if you want me to dress up, and cosplay something. All I ask is, please, nothing that involves wearing a mask like that, because I will sweat my balls off. If you want a 15, 20-minute show, then I'll go as Deli Man. But trust me when I tell you, it's not just the fact that my face will be 200, 300 degrees while I'm doing the show. But when you wear that mask, all of your carbon dioxide doesn't escape. And you're breathing in breath. And when you're breathing in that breath and it gets trapped in there, and because I'm on keto, my breath kind of stinks a little bit worse compared to others. I honestly brush my teeth and use like Scope, like Quest, whatever it's called, Outlast mouthwash before I even do the shows here. Because I don't even want lingering in the air like, where's that smell coming from? It's from here. It smells like I ate cooch, that was laying in the sun all day long in 100-degree heat and decided to run a marathon and didn't bathe after. That's what it smells like. You ever have a dog, that's like running in the yard all day long, running in the yard and you forget to give him water or she water, and then after like an hour or two of playing, the dog sees you, jumps up and starts wanting to lick your face, and all you smell is death. Death breath. That's what it smells like in there. Seriously. I don't want to smell my own breath for 2 hours. So, I'm serious. That's what I do. I brush my teeth. I do mouthwash right before we go live. That's why I usually drink seltzer when we do the shows. Because diet soda or sugar-free iced tea or sugar-free lemonade, drink one of those right after you have like Listerine or Scope or something like that. I mean, it's disgusting. It's like instead of eating out cooch, you ate out of battery, you know? Yeah. So anyway, I think right now, and again, the names that everybody brought up for the most part, who you would put the title on right now is Ciampa, Damian Priest, and even quite a few votes for Kyle O'Reilly. All right. The problem is Damian Priest is in a storyline with Cameron Grimes right now. Not Damian Priest, Dexter Loomis. Damian Priest is the NXT North American champ. You're going to do a repeat of Keith Lee? You know, he wins both titles. Now, in storyline, if he wins both titles, he's putting them in the jacuzzi. He ain't going to do the Keith Lee story like, you know, I know I made history and I'm a double champion and blah, 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 and I'm going to give it back. And then a couple of weeks later, Matarazzi, you have no belts. I'm talking storyline. He didn't really forfeit it. Yeah, Joe Acevedo. Yeah, put the heavyweight title on Velveteen Dream right now. You imagine the uproar? So right now, honestly, and Ciampa, I don't know what they're doing with Ciampa. Look what they're doing with Ciampa. Suddenly out of nowhere, he's going to be champion. They need to step up somebody quickly because I personally feel I don't want to see Finn Balor stripped. But when you just look at the healing process and the risk, I understand this is sports entertainment, and I understand it's not MMA and it's not karate and it's not boxing. But you get hit with an errant shot, you could cause a very serious injury to your face. I mean, I know he absolutely loves professional wrestling. He loves WWE. He loves all of you. And he puts 150% effort every time he comes out. But, I don't think after getting this surgery, you go to the doctors and, he's like, oh, I'm going to fight. Oh, no, you got to heal. And then he goes back in the ring too soon and like his face, no, it's too much of a risk. He got the surgery done to speed up the healing process. It could have healed naturally, but he would have been out for a very long time. So right now they're just playing the storyline like, we'll take a wait and see approach. I'm going to be very curious 2-3 weeks from now to see what WWE does. If you start feeling like someone is rising to the top and got some big-time momentum over the next 3 weeks, don't be surprised if that person is being groomed. Sorry, Dream haters. Being groomed as your next NXT heavyweight champion. So, wait-and-see approach. I agree with you, Sterling, or Benjamin. It's not just the storyline, but still, it's so risky. When he had surgery done, what do you think they did? They just put a hole in his mouth and just looked around. Hey, it looks pretty good, and then sealed it back up. You're good to go. No, they actually performed work on his jaw. It's got to heal. It's got to heal. And 2-3 weeks is not going to be enough. He is really risking, and I don't know if WWE would put that risk on him by returning too soon. Jody, Tessa getting the title. We got to get Tessa Blanchard in NXT first before we could even talk that. I have said it many times before. I think Tessa Blanchard in NXT would be fine. My problem is when you look at the women's roster in NXT, there are quite a few women that are higher on the food chain. And even though Tessa Blanchard is uber talented, even though she was NXT Impact Heavyweight Champion, Tessa is not going to leapfrog Rhea Ripley. Tessa is not going to leapfrog Io Shirai and take that title. Even Toni Storm. You're going to see some crazy-ass momentum with Toni Storm now. You know, Aaliyah, that's the starting point. But they're going to put rockets behind Toni Storm. I know a lot of you like her already. Not just talented in the ring, but how beautiful she is. But Toni Storm, I think, is going to be the next female superstar to come out of NXT. I think Io Shirai is already looked at by a lot of you as a big-time star. So Rhea Ripley, I think a lot of you already look at her as a big-time star. If Io Shirai or Rhea Ripley went to the main roster right now, I don't think you would be against it unless you knew they were going to be misused. I don't see anybody else right now that would skyrocket like that. I think Toni Storm is the next one. So Tessa Blanchard, I love the idea. I just wonder, not only how would she be received if she starts leapfrogging people that, that really are getting the opportunity right now. And also, if she does get in there and let's say wins a title, then what? I personally, look, obviously Impact Wrestling made a little bit of history putting the heavyweight title on Tessa. I know for especially how WWE really, pushes, the women. That's why the Candy Cartwright lawsuit is almost ridiculous as far as what she's saying with, WWE keeping women to a different standard. Does she realize how many character witnesses in WWE as far as women go, if needed? Because notice, nobody has spoke out against her. Nobody has also spoke out in favor of Matt Riddle, to be fair as well. They're not going to say nothing. But if needed, I think there's quite a few women over there that would disagree with Candy Cartwright. And the problem is, with Candy Cartwright, you already know what's going on with that lawsuit, is, it's not like she was in the title picture or headlining events. Just because you share the ring with a lot of other people and you happen to be on a card or supposed to be on a card with somebody you used to have a relationship with, doesn't make you a big-time star. The Joey Ryan situation, which we'll mention in a little bit, in Impact Wrestling, this guy, to say it nicely, I try to be a little bit respectful across the board, but I can't help it. Joe, you're a goof. We're in the middle of fucking COVID. His entire lawsuit, he's claiming all of this stuff. You can't turn around and use being let go from Impact Wrestling as leverage to sue these women and then sue Impact Wrestling as well. What kind of lawyer did you get? My God, what did you do? Suck his lollipop? Oh, man, Jesus. These lawsuits are ridiculous. But anyway, we'll talk about that a little later. Just want to shout out a couple of super chats, and then we got to pay a little tribute to someone who passed. I know for a lot of you in the United States, you would not have known this person. But it is a tragedy. It's a bigger tragedy than you think. And I'll reserve my additional comments in a moment. But first, thank you, Jay Carlos, as always. Oh, we didn't. Yeah, let's put that back. That's a little better. Thank you, as always. I'm doing good. I'm very tired. For anybody that knows, for the last 2.5 weeks, I've been bird sitting. Anybody that's on Patreon got to enjoy, for my haters that are even on our Patreon, got to enjoy this bird taking a massive dump on my shirt and on my pants last week. My parents are back from Florida. They picked him up earlier. I'm a little sad that he's not here right now. I'll see him next week. But tonight will probably be the first night where I don't have to wake up at like 5:30, 6 o'clock in the morning, because that's the time the bird usually wakes up. And unfortunately, I don't have blackout curtains or anything like that. As soon as you have a hint of sunlight, he's ringing his bell to let me know that he's up. And I'm having fun, man. I love the fact that you are all enjoying these shows. 2021 is going to be a monster year for the Donzilla Army. There are so many things being discussed right now as far as where to take this channel. We are going to make a concerted effort to tighten up the shows. I know I've been saying that for a long time, but we want to add more content. And let's be honest. You got Jason Solomonster. You got Lee Sanders. You got Wrestling Days. You got JD from New York. You got Joe Cronin. You have so many great shows out there. There ain't no way all of you out there are going to tune in to 25 hours of my content a week when you also enjoy other people's work as well. So we want to add more content, but we have to tighten the ship a little bit. So in the upcoming weeks, you'll see little things tweaked here and there. But, Mish is aboard for 2021. We got 2 or 3 other people that really want to do something as well. We just don't want to have people on, just have people on, But, look, as of right now, I'm not voting in the election this year. But I will take a quote from Joe Biden's campaign. Right now, everybody knows the running joke, that I'm digging myself a hole. And then my fiance with the quote of the year, yeah, you are digging a hole. Because in order to have a great foundation, you need to dig a deep hole. I love her. Home run. But to take a quote from Joe Biden right now, once the foundation is set, because I'm only on YouTube still for 8 months, 9 months. Everybody else is on YouTube 5, 10, 12, 15 years. I'm on here 8 months. What do people think? I'm going to have 10,000 viewers in one chat this quick? No. But in 2021, we're going to build back better. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And, I'm glad you brought that up. As soon as this channel hits 20,000 subscribers, I'm going to start taking calls. I know some of you would rather I take calls sooner, but we're actually looking to do a call-in show. And we may do it once a week, maybe an hour long. But we're working on so many ideas right now, you have no idea. But we want to be smart about it, and we don't want to hype people up. Because there's so many people, you see it for years. There's so many people that'll hype up, yeah, we're going to do this soon, or I'm going to announce this soon, or we're going to do this soon, I'm going to do that soon, or next year this and this year that, and they don't do nothing. So any announcements that are made, they're going to have, legitimate merit behind it and meaning. So, and 10, 10, 10. Want to thank me for doing the Abyss voice on the 10-year anniversary show. I swear on a stack of Bibles, I had no idea that you were going to be here tonight, that you were going to be live, but I said, you know what? Just in case. They're coming! They're coming! They're coming! The ring! The ring! It's the 10-year anniversary! These dyslexic morons! They don't even know how to spell. How do you grab a sign from a crowd in the middle of the ring closing out a pay-per-view and it's not even spelled right? No wonder why Abyss has that look on his face. Jeff Hardy's got to look like, yeah, I'm pointing to this sign. I know it's not spelled the right way, but when you zoom it up like I am right now, that's how you probably would spell it. And Abyss is like, and Jeff Jarrett's like, yeah, fuck you, Vince. Yeah. Dickhead. 10-year anniversary. The ring. Oh, man, that was so horrible. And I give credit for Impact Wrestling. I've said this before, But whoever runs the social media account for Impact Wrestling is doing a damn good job, really pushing everything. I mean, that's something that, and by the way, I know I said this not too long ago. I beg you, spend 2 minutes and look for yourself. Whoever is handling the NXT Twitter account should be fired. Seriously, should get the Joey Ryan treatment. Get rid of whoever that is. That social media account is being handled piss poor, pathetic. I was scrolling on that wall for about 10 seconds, and I was already up to last week's matches. Plus, this god-awful idea, and I'm going to show you again the early teaser. I mean, look at these 2 matches on top. I mean, you don't even know. Look at the middle, the tag match tonight to determine the number 1 contenders. You look at that. Does that tell you that it's a number 1 contenders match to take on Breezango? Does that show you anything? Whoever, and look, I remember when Mish was on like a month ago, and Mish was like, well, maybe that was just, they had a 1 week thing, and they really, it was just a mistake, or, no. WWE started doing this 6 weeks ago and I've been calling them out every week since. You're taking everybody's names off so people should know who they are. Geniuses. For the fucking people that haven't watched your product because they're watching AEW and they see that picture online. I mean, you got to put stuff that entices it. Look at YouTube with all of the food videos. I mean, even if somebody's doing a product review of Pellegrino water, they don't just put a screenshot of them talking about Pellegrino water. No, they do goofy things like this. They do stupid stuff. Look at all of these podcasts. And people tell me, I see the feedback, I get the emails, everybody's saying to me, DT, you got to put the big, bold block letters. You got to do clickbait. You got to draw people in. Even if you're just I'm not doing that. But as far as WWE goes, look at how people get attention on social media, on YouTube and everything else. You got to make it look like a billboard. Put the names on it. Make it look like it means something. Seriously, this match, how many times on NXT television does Damian Priest as a champion or any North American champion wrestle, but it's a non-title match? Usually the title matches are on takeovers, all right? So you do something like this. Again, look at the 2 matches on the right. How do you know if that's a title match or not? How do you know if the middle match is just a match or there's some stipulation involved? Whoever, and the Tony Storm one on the bottom, I made that one up. I'm going to start adding graphics to them. I mean, it just looks lazy. It's so lazy. And whatever excuse it is, whoever came up with that idea, I don't even care if it's Vince. Seriously, it's just an absolutely dumb, moronic excuse. Yeah, everybody's saying that, So anyway, I want to, I want to just mention one other thing. I didn't realize it. 10-10-10, first time watching a live show in almost 10 years. So I appreciate that. That's awesome, man. But yeah, it's the 10-year anniversary of this TNA. But what I was saying earlier, give credit to Impact Wrestling, whoever handles their social media account, because they are, I mean, if somebody steps on a bottle cap, they'll promote the bottle cap. They promote everything. They're making Deonna Purrazzo look like $1 million. They're really going out of their way. But I laugh when they're going back to history, and on 10-10-20, they're showing us RVD versus Abyss. They're showing this. They're showing Hart. And I'm like, did you guys actually watch this pay-per-view? I mean, some of the things that they were pushing, oh man, it's the 10-year anniversary of this. I'm like, some anniversaries don't need to be celebrated. But in this case, though, 10, 10, 10. Oh, my God. I can't wait till I have the new server and I could put some of my old shows back online, the older, DT shows, KC shows. They're coming, they're in. When Abyss is holding Hogan like a child and Hogan's got no... And remember when I removed his mustache? Oh, man, those are great memories. Great memories. So, look, let's get serious for a second. It's a shame that, mainstream websites will just cut and paste. You could tell they have no emotion invested in it. You could tell they could give a flying fuck about it. You could see all of these podcasters that won't mention nothing, if they're heterosexual, and then you'll see a whole bunch of ladies, Ryan Smile was such a great guy. Then all of a sudden they give a shit. Everybody was a Hana Kimura fan. Once the whole wrestling world were having conversations about her tragedy. For the couple of days that led up to it, they didn't have anything to say. I'm not everybody, but you know what I mean. But we have an unfortunate death to report. Ryan Smile, 31 years old, passed away yesterday, not today. Again, people just cut and pasting and the generic, we send our condolences to the family and friends, and fuck you. This guy, 31 years old, I will only repeat the statement that was given online from his partner, and I think his statement says it all. Alex Windsor says, and I quote, "I cannot believe I'm having to write these words. On Tuesday morning, Ryan passed away after losing his battle with mental health. A battle in which he had been fighting for a very long time. I cannot fathom the words to express how I'm feeling right now. To anyone who knew Ryan, whether through wrestling or on a personal level, it's with an extremely heavy heart that I have to break this tragic news." Once again, mental health. And, I know a lot of you out there, and I totally understand. 99% of you out there in the United States probably never heard of him before. Me, I have seen a little of his work, but he wrestled pretty much overseas. He was a wrestler overseas. So you would hear about some matches here and there, but you really never, got to enjoy it. I mean, look, if you were a fan of Revolution Pro or over-the-top wrestling from overseas, then you've seen him work. But you realize, he wrestled about a dozen years, I believe. He was, he debuted in wrestling at 19. You die at 31. But, I will say this. For any of you out there that want to check out his work, all right, let me just give you some of the names of wrestlers that he has faced, just so you know this isn't just, any, young wrestler who was taken way too soon. He wrestled a series of matches against Pete Dunne. In fact, Over the Top Wrestling, and I'm looking at notes to make sure I have all the names correct and the date correct. But Over the Top Wrestling's first ever show in October of 2014, and their first event was called Fuck PG, the debut event. He took on Pete Dunne. He has wrestled Brian Cage, Pete Dunne, Michael Elgin, Jordan Devlin, Mark and Jay Briscoe, Bushi, Joey Janela, and for all of you in the AEW frame of mind tonight, especially since we just got Dynamite, if you want to go look up a match, go to April 2017, Scrapomania. He teamed up with Leo Rush and Will Ospreay, and they wrestled the Young Bucks and Kenny Omega. So this guy, really uber talented. He wrestled the big names. He wrestled Marty Skrull. he wrestled Sammy Callahan. I mean, there's a lot more names that I could bring up right now, but he retired, I don't know, a year or two ago. So, I mean, you're retiring around 30 years old, and it seems like wrestling was his whole life, and he's battling mental health for years and years and years. Like I say, you know I have eased up on, really spending time about the frauds and the fakes on social media and goofy this and goofy that, because I think we all understand that some people out there who have, and I'm not saying that Ryan Smile did this, but that some people out there, especially over the last 8 months, who instead of, trying to, work and do things during COVID and make adjustments and just sit on social media for 8 months and watch TV and vegetate. And then, when there's no money, no bills and everything else. But there's a deeper situation going on. A lot of people out there, that need for attention, that need for acceptance, that need to feel wanted. I know it has driven a lot of people to basically create these false personas. That's why they hide. That's why some of these people you will never see, you will never meet, because it's they want you to know of them is what they have built on social media. And the thing is that even though it's sad, it's disgusting, it's depressing, it's this, it's that, there's an underlying issue here, and that's depression. It's mental health, and that's something that you have to take very, very serious. And, that's why I don't really ever single out any individual person, because for all you know, the one person that you expose as a fraud, or that could be the person who is the most fragile, or the person with the most depression built up inside them. And what enjoyment do you get by simply just outing someone or this and that? I mean, it's just Joey Ryan. Look, I think his lawsuit is garbage. I think, there were other women that were supposed to come public. And I think this lawsuit was also to give a subliminal message to those women. Don't even think about it. I will add you to the fucking docket. But Joey Ryan has battled huge depression. I'm not trying to put sympathy towards him. My point is that you can't just assume because someone is smiling or someone is, putting themselves out there that, they're a superhero, they're this, they're going out, they're getting laid, they got a job, they got this, they got that, they got this, and you never see proof of it. And it's all just a figment of their imagination, because at the end of the day, they just need that attention. And I'm not knocking it right now. You can't assume. You can't assume. You can't even, the cancel culture and this gang mentality, if someone does something disgusting and has been caught, and people want to, handle it however they do. The speaking out movement is legit. Speaking out movement is legit. But just like with Me Too or politics or sports, entertainers, anything else, you're always going to get people that are going to use that for a different agenda. It happens. People are using COVID for different agendas. I'm raising money for this thing. And like I said, that guy that claimed he was being evicted without naming any names, it wasn't true. Wasn't true. But what are you going to do? Sit on social media and just do verbal bullets all day long? And if that person is seriously got depression, that is desperate, that has no money, and even though that person lied, that might be the only way that person could possibly get some type of fundage right now. You can't take it for granted. So when you see something like this, unfortunately for a good number of people online is going to be the formula that I brought up. You know, make fun of people, mock people, you know, insult people, usually hidden behind jokes. And then once they're called out for, oh, I'm just kidding around, you know, we're all, and then tragedy strikes. Everybody, we need to be better. We need to get along. We got to stop making fun of each other. We got to stop insulting people. We got to stop putting people down. And then that sits for a week or two. And then after a couple of weeks, when that starts to die down, then you get a little joke here. Very, very, you know, harmless. Then you get two jokes. The next thing you know, you get the whole thing, and it's the same circle. You know, you can't take people for granted online. You can't. It's terrible. Social media, I've been saying it for about 5, 6, 7 years now, and I know a lot of you are sick of me saying it, but it has been the demise for millions of people out there. Because I've even said about legal stuff. You know, we could talk about wrestlers, we could talk about podcasters, we could talk about journalists. Somebody gets threatened, their life, instead of calling the cops, I'll post a tweet. Somebody does something terrible to someone, don't call law enforcement. No, I tweet about it instead. People have lost their priorities. And mental health it's been an issue for decades and decades and decades. And you would think, especially with what's going on in this world, that people could really maybe come together a little bit. And you know what they do? They come together on social media, and then outside of social media, they're 10 times worse than they were before. It's a shame, man. It really is a shame. So rest in peace, Ryan Smile. If you want to go check out some of his matches, there are quite a few online. There is an awesome one with Pete Dunne on YouTube. Fabulous match. And you realize how talented this guy was. 31 years old. I don't care if he was 61. Mental health is no joke. And, you know, I've said this on the Patreon shows. I usually don't say it on these shows here, you know. And there's a reason why I don't say it here. I definitely get depressed from time to time. You know, I still have not gotten over putting my dog down several years ago. I still get nightmares every month where, you know, I'll wake up crying. You know, I'm very, very, you know, upset about my mom's health. That's why when people call me a mama's boy, because I go over their house once or twice a week and try to spend some quality time, I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Call me whatever you want. I'm going to enjoy whatever time my mom is going to still have left on this earth. You know, my father too, you know, and things aren't easy. You know, I have a lot of pressure going on, but, you know, you have to make a choice. You know, how do you want to deal with that? Me, I think keeping myself busy all the time, I think that helps me. You know, I get so many of you that'll send me emails and DMs, sometimes publicly, like, you know, you've helped me through some really rough times. Mish, Joey Numbers, John Draper, when we were all at Lucky 13, and we'll move on in a second. The one thing that I'll never forget from that night, and there are hundreds of people that'll back me up on this. Those 3 guys will back me up on this. After the whole event was over, there was a line of people, like waiting to meet me, waiting to meet Soup guys, waiting to meet Draper, and they all heard it because we all heard it. Every time somebody came up, man, I got to tell you how much, you know, you helped me when, you know, I had a bad breakup, when my father died, when I got sick, when I lost my house, when I do this, when I had to do. And when you have person after person after person coming up to you and telling you that, you know, it really hits you inside, because you realize that, you know, even though I'm a nobody and we're just regular people that, you know, are just enjoying, you know, wrestling for the most part, you know, the fact that you can actually, you know, help somebody like that, you don't need a blue check mark. You don't have to be on TV. You could have 10 followers and you'd be surprised how much you could touch someone. So, you know, I'm sorry if this conversation was a little bit deep and everything. But the point is that, mental health comes in all shapes and forms. You don't just have to be gay. You don't just have to be a minority. You don't just have to be a certain class. It's just like COVID. It doesn't specify. It goes, whoever it goes for, it goes for. And you really, sometimes, if there's somebody you absolutely hate online and you want to see them, do themselves in, like I always say, there's people online I can't stand. But I have decided, you know what? Karma will happen to them in a different way. I'm not going to be part of it. I'll just sit back and whatever happens, happens. I truly believe that in the end, good does prevail. Seriously. And you're never going to have a world where all this evil is gone. It's always going to be around. But, like I say, I try to treat everybody equally. I don't care if you're black. I don't care if you're gay. I don't care if you're bisexual. And people know that. That's why for years and years and years, people were trying to say, oh, he called New Jack the N-word. Oh, he did this. It was never true because they absolutely hated the fact, that I helped bail him out one time. So any of you out there, seriously, just treat people like you want to be treated. Plain and simple. And when there's people out there that really, that they're not worth saving or there's no way to save, don't even waste your time on them. Just move on. It's easier said than done because you know me. I always seem to throw some digs here and there. But, you'd be surprised, man. When I have said for the last couple of years that I have people that smile to my face and stab me in the back, you have no idea. You have no idea. I just decide, like I say, out of everything that I always say on these shows, I repeat one sentence. The best revenge for haters towards all of you out there is success. Happiness. You don't have to be happy, Chris Van Vliet smile, 24/7, 365. But when you're happy or you're successful or you're trying to take chicken shit, which is life right now, and turn it into chicken salad, that is unpopular. Misery loves company. That's an old saying. But deep down inside, it rattles their brain. It rattles their brain, and you don't need their acknowledgement. When people say, oh, keep doing what you're doing. Oh, I support you, this and that. And then every time something good happens, they're so bitter that they can't like this, they can't do this, they can't do that. I don't really care. But we all see that people out there will say one thing and do another. Just treat people like you want to be treated. That's all I have to say. And the sad thing about it in the case of Ryan Smile is that, I did not see anybody online talking about him being bullied or anything like that. We don't even know the core of his mental health issues. But you can't just assume that you can diagnose everybody online simply because of a tweet or a series of tweets or how someone is perceived. Because you could know someone online for 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, and not know them personally, and then find out after all that time that it was a fraud. So it's not just the addiction of wanting to be accepted and liked and noticed, but that feels good. And when you have a deep, deep, deep depression, and that kind of like it's almost like a painkiller. It's just, instead of treating physical pain, it's emotional pain. That's what a lot of people do on social media. So anyway, so let's move on, everyone. I don't know if you heard or watched my show on Friday, but last Wednesday, we were all concerned about Ridge Holland and the severity of his injury. He underwent surgery last week and broken left ankle, dislocated left ankle, dislocated and ruptured right patella tendon. This man was in the midst of a huge storyline with Adam Cole. And, a lot of you came up with a great idea that maybe Pat McAfee was the one that paid off Ridge Holland to take out Adam Cole. And I tell you, I've thought about it for the last week, and I say that is a fabulous idea. Because in storyline, whoever in storyline bought a Mercedes for Ridge Holland has megabucks. And when you go up and down that NXT roster, there's very few people that you can basically say, well, in storyline, that person is loaded. Some of you in the last couple of days thought that maybe Andrade was NXT bound. Him and Mickie James ended up being the last two that were quote unquote undrafted from the draft. And if you want my overall thoughts on the draft, check out Monday's show and last Friday's. Overall, I'm not thrilled with it. Most of the storylines that you thought people were going to be split up, the storylines change brands if you really look at it. But, I thought Andrade, if you look at a lot of his social media footprint, even when he's taking the pictures with Charlotte and everything, he always tries to come off like this Tony Montana. I'm sure a lot of you know what I'm talking about. And Andrade, the only other person is Santos Escobar. And I don't think Santos Escobar was going to have a feud with Adam Cole anytime soon. Then again, when Santos Escobar and his posse came out tonight during the Jake Atlas Ashante match, Adonis match, it felt a little random. So who knows? Maybe Santos Escobar. I don't know. But Pat McAfee, I love that choice. I just don't know if he's returning to WWE. But I think Andrade, somebody wrote earlier that Andrade had to undergo some surgery and maybe out for a month. I don't know what the surgery was. I don't think he got injured on Raw Monday. But Andrade to NXT, it's not a bad idea. I think that's a pretty damn good idea. So we'll have to wait for a little while. So anyway, Ivelisse did an interview with Dirt Sheet Radio. I checked it out, recommendation from a few of you out there, and it's a pretty good interview. I mean, she all but admits that, she could be a handful, I think, to say it nicely. But, she talked about her experience in AEW, praising it. Obviously she's part of AEW's roster, even though we haven't seen her as much lately after the Thunder Rosa matches. She pretty much dodges the Thunder Rosa question because everybody that's trying to interview Ivelisse right now, that's, the home run that they want to get. They want her to, really open up on that. She really didn't open up all that much, but, what she did say, it gave me the vibe that, Ivelisse is basically saying, look, I'm the older person in the ring. I have more under my belt in the ring. And, you got to show a little bit more respect for me. I know for some of you out there, including me, that might sound a little bit conceited or big-headed, but in wrestling there is, an etiquette. And I'm not saying that Thunder Rosa, didn't follow that etiquette. But in Ivelisse's eyes, like I said, if you remember that one move that we all saw that replay of where Thunder Rosa is doing a couple of moves to Ivelisse, and Ivelisse is sitting in the middle of the ring. Now, look, if it's a house show, I get it. If it's a tiny promotion, I get it. But when you're on Dynamite in front of 7, 8, 900,000 people, and you're right smack in the center of the ring, and all eyes are on you, and you're just sitting there and going, there's no excuse for that. If there's an issue, you do the match, and then as soon as you go to the back, then you address the issue. So, obviously there was some tension there, but I don't believe it is anywhere near the level that a lot of people think it is. Personally, I think that there's a lot of people out there that hope there's crazy-ass tension between Ivelisse and Thunder Rosa. You know, people want to see, you know, like real, and again, you know, I understand, and here's the weird thing about it, if anybody goes back with me a little ways, you know, when I started doing my wrestling hotline in 1997, and I used to feud with other wrestling hotlines at that time. I used to make fun of them, and I'm not going to lie, I was the biggest asshole back then. A lot of people still think I am. But the thing was, though, is we had these little wars that were childish. But, you know, at the same time, we're talking 23, 24 years ago. But the one thing I used to say all the time was that the people calling the hotlines, they found the real-life hatred, those storylines, more entertaining than what they watch on TV. And, you know, if you're young, naive, 20-something years ago, okay, maybe that kind of makes more sense. But especially the conversation we just had about mental health and depression and everything else. If you actually fancy real-life hatred, even if it's wrestlers and other wrestlers, over storylines on TV, you shouldn't be a wrestling fan anymore. There should be no excuse why anybody wants to see two people in real life absolutely like want to kill each other, tear their heads off. It's not right, in my opinion. So anyway, so check out that interview. I think you will enjoy it. You will enjoy it. Overall, she comes off pretty well, in my opinion. So shout out to Ken. You're very welcome. Thank you for making me laugh when I made a joke about him on Monday. I wanted to share it with everybody tonight, you know, but unfortunately I didn't have the audio setting correct for that, so I couldn't do it. But you're very welcome, my friend. Thank you for that. I really do. And Crazy Cruiserweight, he liked being what, that was his name. What school you go to? However, Crazy Cruiserweight is here to stay. And, yeah, I'm going to take care of that MLW shirt for you tomorrow. So, you know, the last 2 days have been a little bit nuts over here. Besides, my license to sell insurance expires October 31st, and I have to go to school in order to renew my license. Now, it's online webinars, but for the last 3 days, I've been spending 3-4 hours a day watching live webinars because you got to accumulate 15 hours worth of school in order to renew your license. I waited till the last minute, obviously, because in about 2 weeks from now, we got this. So, yeah. So anyway, let's talk about AEW and NXT tonight. Luckily, we won't have to do any long-ass recaps. But and then after that, I'll mention briefly about the Joey Ryan Impact Wrestling lawsuit. And by the way, if you're enjoying the show, you know, I would appreciate if you give it a thumbs up. Gives a little feedback for yours truly, and, you know, it gives me a little more exposure on YouTube. If you don't like the show, give it a thumbs down. I totally respect however you feel about the show. So anyway, AEW tonight, you know, I know anybody that watched commercials on the Turner Network, or, you know, whatever you call it these days, leading up to tonight, almost every commercial said that there were 3 title defenses. And they actually said the TNT Championship, the Tag Championship, and the Heavyweight Championship. No mention of Hikaru Shida defending her title. And the reason why that was because those commercials were recorded a couple of weeks ago, and Hikaru Shida's match against Big Swole was not announced until a few days later. So those commercials were already circulating across the networks. So that's the reason why, because I know some of you out there early on today were a little concerned, thinking that maybe Shida wasn't going to be defending her title tonight. And she did. She had, put the air on, it's a little hot in here. She had the match against Big Swole. It was an okay match. I loved Big Swole hitting from the rope outside the ring and hitting a cutter on Shida, that looked pretty sweet. You know, I know some of you out there are not sold yet on Big Swole, and I get it. You know, the dentist match, whatever that clusterfuck was, with Britt Baker was awful. It was awful. But the one thing that is pretty cool that I have noticed is that, you know, the after effects are not lingering. Even the Britt Baker stuff tonight, I didn't see anybody still bringing up that debacle of the match with Big Swole. Everybody's moved on from it. And I also think that AEW got a lesson from that. That, you know, you could come up with, you know, novelty matches like that, but you have to make sure that the people who are in that match can actually pull it off. And especially with COVID right now, that those are pre-recorded. If it ends up being junk, you got to throw it on the pre-show or you scrap it entirely. To still put it on not only the pay-per-view, but the opening match, man, I mean, that should have been followed by a match where you want to bring everyone down. You just witness a 4.5, 5-star match, and everybody's energy, you're just exhausted after it because you're just popping, and, you know, everything that's going on in the match is just unbelievable. You know, after that match is over, you know, you need to come down a little bit. You need a little bit of a break. That's where the Big Swole and Britt Baker match should have been put in. But whoever's thinking it was to start that pay-per-view with that match, really, that's a learning experience. AEW TV is 1 year old, and it's a learning experience. They can't always be, you know, picture perfect or near perfect. There was some things tonight that were not very good, you know, and we'll get into it. So, tonight you had Jim Ross, Excalibur, and Tony Schiavone on commentary. Opening match, FTR beating Best Friends to retain the titles. There was one part early on, and look, this spot might have been goofy. And yes, I know some of you out there are like, wait a minute. Miro and Kip Sabian are now going to feud with Best Friends over a video game. I know when you think of it like that, I kind of agree with you. But, and you know, some people are talking about Schiavone. I'm sorry for changing the subject, but Michael Gonzalez brings up a great idea. I didn't just realize that I still had the Halloween graphic still up. He said that I should get green makeup and a hat and shades and the fangs and dress up like what you're seeing on the screen right now. That is not a bad idea. That is not a bad idea. I mean, if it's really hot in here by the end of the night, I'll probably look like Sting, you know, like towards the end of his match when he used to have all the face paint, or the Ultimate Warrior after his match, like all the face paint is wore off because of the sweat and everything else. I mean, at the end of the night, I might look like, you know, in the middle of the Incredible Hulk and David Banner. But, yeah, it's not a bad idea. I'm actually going to consider that. That's not a bad idea. So, anyway, so I get it. You know, on the surface, it's a little goofy. The video game spot that they did tonight, they did that as a reason to have Miro want to beat up Best Friends. So basically what happened was you had all the wrestlers around ringside like you do every week. And they showed Kip Sabian playing a video game, a regular full cabinet arcade game. Now, I understand you make it hollow because when Trent goes through the back of the video game, you don't want his head to get electrocuted or, you know, hit very sharp wires and everything. I get it. But the thing that I thought was so ridiculous, and maybe I'm wrong, but I looked at it again and I'm positive of it. The spot was so awful with the video game because it wasn't even plugged in. There was no power. You know, I was going to joke earlier and say, okay, the reason why Miro is so pissed is because that video game's very expensive. It's battery operated. You don't have giant consoles that are pretty much battery operated like that. And I get it. You could put in a battery pack and this and that, but not something that's a full. It was just a prop. And that's really what it was. So to use Kip Sabian playing a video game in the audience, and then Trent happens to go through it, and that pisses off Miro because Trent broke the game. You know, to me, honestly, that's a little goofy. So, but I will say this. They handled Miro tonight perfect. Perfect. What they did with Miro tonight, they should have done 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever that match was. But FTR get the win. It was an okay match. You know, you had Cash hit Chuck with the title belt, and Dax rolled him up for the win to retain the titles. You know, if you follow FTR, especially under the tutelage of Tully Blanchard, a ton of it is old school brain busters. Even the way they, and I brought this up before, even the way they enter the ring, even the way they hold the ring for Tully, and even the way they do some of their mannerisms, even some of the way they walk, they are emulating, in a lot of ways, the brain busters. And guess what? That is not a bad thing. So they are doing it well. Some hardcore AEW fans are still not feeling FTR because of their in-ring repertoire. There is no flippy. There is a lot of cheating. There is. So, you know, unfortunately, they're never going to be 100% well-received by AEW fans. Their style is a lot different than a lot of other wrestlers over there. That's the reason why, even with Best Friends, you have to do a shot that involves, you know, somebody getting smashed through a pin, you know, an arcade game. You know, FTR, it's just straight up wrestling. And especially in 2020, in today's climate, you know, they got to be a little bit different with the way they handle their matches. But, you know, I have no problem with FTR. I think they have done a phenomenal job in AEW. Phenomenal. And I have admitted this before. I never expected FTR to fit in this nicely. You know, I always knew that they were better than the way they were portrayed in WWE. But, you know, especially when we used to say, remember when we used to say video game rules? Very hard to fit into that climate with the video game rules going on. So, you know, they do pretty good. I mean, they represent the belts well. And you know what? I understand some of you chatting right now are not fans of theirs. The reason why it's very important for them to fit in and fit in well is because you do need a diverse, you know, different styles in that company. You have to have a whole diverse, you know, set of wrestlers. Not everybody can be flippy. Not everybody could follow the same template. Sure, the Lucha Brothers are totally different than the Young Bucks, and they're totally different than Private Party, and but still, they all follow a similar template. So if FTR can actually succeed this way, then other wrestlers that don't fit the typical mold that you would perceive for AEW, there's a good chance they could fit as well. So after that match is over, we have Miro hits the ring. Kip Sabian hits the ring. They're pissed because remember, we had, you know, Trent go through the arcade machine. So as soon as Best Friends lost, Miro and Kip Sabian hit the ring and started beating the balls off of Best Friends, throws him out of the ring. And, you know, then Miro and Kip Sabian have a match. Now, I didn't think they were going to have an impromptu match with Best Friends, but they take on Sean Maluta and Lee Johnson. And Miro calls them, what do you call them? Good friends? I think called them good friends, like a knockoff is best friends, but they're not as good. But what they did with Miro tonight was perfect. Squash match, dominant, 2 minutes, done, over. There was no need 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, wherever it was, to have that long of a match with Joey Janela and Sonny Kiss. Look, not taking anything away from them, but I think 2 weeks ago, my honest opinion, 2-3 weeks ago when Miro had his debut match, he should have teamed up with Kip Sabian then and taken on Lee Johnson and Sean Maluta. Should have been an absolute squash, come in as a beast, angry mother, you know what, and that's how you kick him off in his AEW career. So, yeah, I get it, Daz. We all like long matches. But Miro right now doesn't need it. Just like Lance Archer. You know, you're facing someone like Cody or Moxley. So I totally understand why the matches should go a little longer. But when you're facing someone much lower on the card, that loss to whoever is Lance Archer's opponent is, that should be within a minute. There's some people that should just dominate beyond imagination. So the way they use Miro tonight, you know, yes, can squash matches, absolutely. But the thing with AEW, and I think you've realized this now, is that even the wrestlers that are much lower on the food chain that they have signed, they don't like to do squash matches. I'm sure you've noticed that by now. They don't like to do squash matches. They almost insist that the wrestlers much lower on the food chain get their share of offense in. And look, I could bring up individual examples. You remember that Kenny Omega match where everybody complained. You remember recently in a Hikaru Shida match where she went like 7, 8, 9 minutes and people were like, why? It doesn't make sense. So, you know, AEW has a habit of having some of the lower card wrestle longer matches to give them, I guess, a little bit of a bite, a little nibble. But unfortunately, sometimes someone just needs to be squashed like a grape. And even NXT does that as well. You know, you have Austin Theory for how many weeks losing in a minute or two. Now suddenly he's having 15-minute matches with people and Gargano can't just wipe him away. I mean, look, the whole idea tonight was to have a really competitive match, and Gargano after the match is saying, you know, like, not bad to Austin Theory, showing a little bit of respect to Austin Theory. I think Austin Theory, if you remember when I said I think the plates of shit are starting to stop, I think now they're going to start turning the corner with Austin Theory. And I get it. A lot of you don't like squash matches, but it is necessary to put over someone's dominance. It's necessary to give that suspension of disbelief that someone is unbeatable. This way, when someone you like can actually go toe-to-toe with that person for an extended period of time, you know, then you say, oh, okay, you know, he hung with him. That's the reason why. So, Ken, did I like the Ryback matches? I don't mind absolute squashes, but they have to end quickly because, you know, you come in, you haven't proven yourself yet in storyline, and you're just squashing no-name people. You know, yeah, you want to get your foot in the door, you want to make an impression to, you know, the roster, your employers, the wrestling fans, but within a couple of weeks, you know, when you'd say feed me more, and this is not Ryback's fault, this was WWE's booking. When you're saying feed me more, and now you're giving them 2 scrubs, that gets played out after 2-3 weeks at most. And what are you going to do? 3 scrubs, 4 scrubs, 5 scrubs? You know, you can't do Feed Me More and you're still doing the same thing. They did it way too long with Braun Strowman. We got James Ellsworth out of it, but they did it way too long with Braun Strowman. And, you know, it depends on the scenario. But Miro tonight, you know, 1 squash match. Just 1. That's all it is. Now they get a feud with best friends over a video game. And Miro with the line tonight, you break my shit, game over. Game over. So, I look, fighting over a video game is kind of goofy, especially one that had no power, you know, that was hollow. But, you know, look, it's disrespect. So, it's not really the video game, it's just disrespect. Sometimes, and I've been guilty of this too, sometimes somebody disrespects you and you don't forgive. You know, I mean, people disrespect me. And if it's someone I care about, you know, someone that I'm close to, you know, then you get a little past it or you try to work around it. But it's someone I don't really know or care much for, disrespects me, you know, Deej in the street, you know, maybe not physically, but, you know. Luckily, that doesn't happen much often. So, if Sam was a street fighter, he would fight me for it. Finish him! Finish him! So, now we get, throughout the night, Lance Archer, Jon Moxley, brawling in the back. At one point, I mean, it was funny. If you go back and you watch it, the goof. Remember, didn't it look like Jake the Snake Roberts, when he had that vest jacket, whatever it was? It looked like he kept trying to put it on Lance Archer. And it looked like almost like a bad James Brown skit, where Lance Archer is just beating the balls off of Jon Moxley. And Jake Roberts keeps coming up with this vest. And I'm like, what are you trying to do? Ernest the Cat Miller? And then after all of that, it looked like Jake Roberts was putting it on for himself. Like he couldn't put it. It was just, oh, man. There was some humor out of that as well. But there was one goof that was standing by like that table. And if you go back and you watch that again, just focus only on the goof that Lance Archer ended up hitting. Just look at that goof and watch what he's doing or not doing while Archer and Moxley are brawling. It's pretty funny. It's pretty funny. Mortalica, why did they change Archer's theme? Because Ruckus, very talented with entrance themes. Ruckus has been making the music for everybody. And, you know, they want to have their own custom, personalized music. So, but, you know, that was the storyline to make it look like maybe Moxley can't compete or a brawl, no DQ. You know, it was just to set up later on the night that they can't be controlled. So now we find out about a tournament that is starting next week. The AEW Title Eliminator Tournament. Didn't we just have the word eliminator with WWE NXT? I mean, is eliminator the new elimination? I mean, I can't say it twice as fast. But basically, this is a tournament to determine the new, I guess, number one contender for Moxley's title. And these are the participants, and the matches start next week. I don't know how you feel about some of these names. We are very fair on this show, but this is the list. Penta El Zero, Pentagon Jr., taking on Rey Fenix. That I am very curious to see. Then you have Kenny Omega taking on Joey Janela. Now, I have nothing against Joey Janela. And by the way, you know, that situation with him and Megabyte Ronnie, I'm not going to get into it over here, but yesterday on Patreon, Mish and I were having a laugh over it because, you know, they had this online feud for a few minutes that blew up really bad, really quick, and they deleted a tweet or two. They took a step back, and they resolved everything like men. And at the end of the day, Joey Janela and Megabyte Ronnie both, you know, looked even better than before. And the thing that was hilarious about it is it got so much fucking attention. Mish and I talked about it. It got so much attention. Like I said before, that people out there that actually are wanting real life heat and fights, sick in the head. So they're having this war online because of a dispute of working for free during COVID, this and that. I'm not gonna, like I said, I'm not going to put the whole story here. If you want to look it up, you can see. But when this was going down, you ever see that GIF file? Yes, I got it right. The GIF file of the New Day, and you know, you have Big E with the popcorn, and he's got his eyes like get the popcorn. That's what every internet goof was doing when these two guys were going at it with each other. The minute Janela and Megabyte Ronnie decided to mend things and clear it up, they all disappeared. It wasn't interesting anymore. And when everybody was like, you know what, cool for both of them for resolving it, got no attention, no likes. Like I said, misery loves company. So anyway, so I like Janela. Janela is talented. I wouldn't put him on the upper echelon of AEW stars right now, in my opinion. But does anybody in their right mind think that Joey Janela is going to beat Kenny Omega in advance? You look at this tournament, it looks very, very predictable. I mean, Rey Fenix versus Pentagon Jr., that kind of feels a little bit like a toss-up. But I almost feel like Rey Fenix and Mortalica, I will comment about the Britt Baker thing in 2 seconds. Let me finish this first. I think Rey Fenix, I don't know why, man. To me, and I hate choosing, but if you force me and put a gun to my head, I would choose Pentagon Jr. over Rey Fenix. I think Pentagon Jr. is a little bit better in the ring than Rey Fenix. But it's weird. It feels like in AEW's eyes, they value Rey Fenix a little bit more than Pentagon Jr. I don't know why. It's a perception that comes across to me. So it would not surprise me if Rey Fenix advances next week. But for me, I would love to see Pentagon Jr. advance. But you know Omega is advancing. On the opposite side, you have Hangman Page versus Colt Cabana. I put Colt Cabana in the same category as Joey Janela. Nothing against Colt Cabana. Colt Cabana does a hell of a lot behind the scenes. He's great, but I don't know why he's in this tournament. I don't know why Joey Janela is in this tournament, with all due respect. So Hangman Page is going to advance. And then Wardlow and Jungle Boy. That's kind of, the interesting one, because Hangman Page is going to advance. So who do you want Hangman Page facing? Do you want him to face Wardlow, or do you want him to face Jungle Boy? So I kind of lead towards Wardlow. Then you have Wardlow versus Hangman Page. And then on the opposite side, you have, if it was up to me, Pentagon Jr. versus Omega. And then you might have the predictable Omega versus Hangman Page in that Eliminator tournament. So that begins next week. Mortalica asked, did I read the Britt Baker interview with Up Rocks when she said that the fans could help the women's division by watching TV? This goes back to what I've been saying for a long time now, that a lot of people out there think they know how advertising goes in TV entertainment and ratings and this and that. just because you know what demos mean, and just because you think 18 to 34, 18 to 49 is the most important demo, you know, they don't understand anything about Nielsen boxes. And they don't understand, you know, if you don't have a Nielsen box in your house, if everybody that she's talking to don't have Nielsen boxes, they could all watch and it's not changing those ratings at all. In my opinion, you know, the only way the women's division is going to get more exposure is when the overall ratings during those quarter hours improve. And, you know, I don't want to criticize Britt Baker on that because it's not her fault that she doesn't understand how TV ratings work entirely. But when she made that comment, it reminded me of Dixie Carter. Remember Dixie Carter a while back when she was still running everything? She was like telling everybody to DVR this and this. At that time, it didn't matter. I mean, what Dixie Carter was telling people to do wouldn't have changed anything. But the thing is that, you know, you shouldn't have to ask fans to do anything. It should happen organically. And my point is, you know, like me, I'll never say to anybody here, look, if you really support what I do and this and that, then you got to tune in live and you got to watch this and you got to do this, you got to do that. You know, I understand, especially on Mondays, especially on Wednesdays, that there are fellow podcasters that do wrestling recaps right after Dynamite and NXT, just like I do. And they have a family of viewers that they have built up for 5, 10, 15 years. So I would never tell anybody out there, don't watch that one live. Watch me live. I do the opposite. I'm like, look, you enjoy that show live, tune into them live. If you enjoy what I do, whether you watch it 10:05 tonight or 5 a.m. tomorrow or 6 p.m. Friday, you know, as long as you enjoy it. But the thing is that I'm not going to tell people, please, you want to see this bigger. You have to watch. You have to. No, I'd rather sit and look at the numbers and see, you know, what gets more viewers. I look at the trends while I'm doing the shows. If I see a big gap somewhere, then I go and I play whatever I was talking about that time. And then if it's something, you know, then I'm like, okay, maybe I shouldn't focus on that anymore. Weird thing about it is I notice when I talk about real deep conversation on these shows, numbers go like this. And there was one time Mish was on with me. I don't remember what night it was, but he'd probably remember. But we were in the middle of a really deep conversation. And, you know, I had said about halfway through, I'm like, look, everybody, the reason why we haven't moved on yet is because I'm looking online and, you know, we've actually doubled our viewers in the last 5-10 minutes. And Mish was like, yeah, I see this. Like, it was interesting. Like, you would think it would be the opposite. But, you know, there's some things that draw people in. But the point is that I don't want people to tune into me because someone else is bad. I want people to tune into me because I'm good. And that's something I didn't always follow. Up until around 2007, 2008, I used to make fun of every podcast out there, webcast, whatever you called it at the time. I used to joke about everybody, In Your Head and all these others. Oh, my God. But then it started really, like, sinking in. Like, you know what? I'd rather people tune in to me because I'm good, not because they're bad. Plain and simple. And it's all walks of life, even with politics. You want to vote for someone because they're good, not because the other person is bad. You understand? So with Britt Baker, she shouldn't have to say that. She should expect people to tune in because they're good, and that's it. Sasha Banks, people made such a big deal that she drew 900,000 viewers main eventing NXT. Now you look at it and you realize that, it wasn't too long ago, where the women opened up an episode of NXT and they did 900,000 viewers. And you realize, like, nobody told anybody, hey, make sure you tune into the beginning of the show. I mean, you should see the numbers without having to bring it up. So if a fan asks Britt Baker, like, how come the women are not utilized more on TV? Probably be a better idea for her to just, I don't want to say dodge the question, but, maybe you say, look, you're asking the wrong person. You got to talk to the people behind the scenes. And that's it. Just telling people, hey, if you really want to see more of us, then you got to tune in. No, you want people to tune in because of your work, and it's good. And hell, with all due respect to Britt Baker, and I have gone a long way towards Britt Baker. I used to call her Shit Baker, and I used to call her Britt Bella, because she has improved. She's not there yet, but she's on her way. She's coming off one of the worst matches I have ever seen, and yes, it was a gimmick match, but one of the worst matches I have seen in about 10, 15 years. I think Jenna Maraska and Sharmell, I think that was the match. I think that's the only match that was worse to me. But she's coming off a high-profile, god-awful, clusterfuck debacle. She has no weight right now to be saying to anybody, you want to see more of us on TV? No. Don't have god-awful, clusterfuck debacles. Then it's different. So that's my answer to that. So anyway. So now we get MJF in the Inner Circle and Chris Jericho. Now, it was funny because MJF brought jackets to everybody in the Inner Circle last week, but forgot one for Sammy. He brought one for Sammy, and while I take my sip of my Pellegrino water, I even think that jacket would be big on me. So the running joke is MJF got the wrong size for Sammy Guevara. Sammy Guevara doesn't want to put it on. Jericho forces him to put it on. It's the thought that counts. You know what it reminded me of? And it's going to happen again this year. The only difference is now I get to wear them on podcasts. Every year for 23 years doing all these shows, I've always talked about it on audio-only shows. Now I get to wear them and show you. Every year, somebody in my family, you would think, since I've been on this earth, now approaching my 5th decade, you would think that my family knows that I like T-shirts. Yeah, I like black. This one, in case anybody didn't see, the shirt. Can't stand idiots. Yep, can't stand idiots. But I like polo shirts. I like T-shirts. And that's pretty much it. Yes, because I've lost weight, I could wear button-down shirts more. But, I'll wear a shirt on Monday for Mish. I bought it for Mish. And, people, well, you saw it at the beginning when the intro got all screwed up tonight. I wore that in tribute to Brandy, by the way, because Brandy actually wore a shirt that we thought just said shirt, but it was drinking shirt. So I said, I'm going to buy a shirt that says shirt. And I wore it Monday. But the thing is, for me, I'm simple. I have suits, I have polo shirts, and I have T-shirts. You want to buy me clothes, get me a polo shirt or a T-shirt. I don't wear sweaters. And my brother, I love him to death, but my brother is the guiltiest party of it. And I am convinced that he maybe re-gifts more than anything. Every year, he gives me these stripe button-down shirts or these ugly, ugly sweaters that look like Charlie Brown with like this. And I either put them in the Salvation Army donation box, I put them in a shopping bag and I dump it. And then the funny thing is one time we went over my mom's house and he had given me this shirt. And I don't know if it was my mom or my father. And they're like, wear your brother's shirt tonight. Make him feel good. I've never seen you wear one of your brother's shirts. And I didn't have the heart to tell him that I threw it away. I threw it in the garbage. I don't even think I could have got $5 for it on eBay. Ugliest things. Then after that, for the last 4 or 5 years, every time I open up the box, it's something ugly that I would never wear. And I open up the box, and I open up, it's like, it'll say like Macy's on it. And I'll open up the box, and I'll see my mom over here, and I'll go like this. And she'll say to me under her breath, it's the thought that counts. It's the thought that counts. How many of you had that told to you over the years? You get a horrible gift from someone and your family says to you, it's the thought that counts. It's the thought that counts. Give your grandma a kiss. It's the thought that counts. It's the thought. That's what they did to Sammy Guevara tonight. Sammy Guevara, I've already talked about the idea of maybe someone turning in the near future. Now I'm starting to wonder if Jericho is going to be kicked out of the inner circle. Somebody's got to spread their wings. And the big question is, and this is something I was thinking about the other day, could it be possible that the reason why Jericho and Hager are teaming up, because those two guys will ultimately get kicked out of the inner circle? Then you're left with Guevara, Santana, and Ortiz, and do you possibly maybe join up with Eddie Kingston and the Lucha Bros and you do some type of Latino clique? Or are they going to maybe have an inner circle with possibly MJF as the leader or someone else? So I'm a little torn right now. I don't know if Jericho and Hager should be the ones that they turn on or if they turn on Sammy. But if you remember, I said recently that Sammy ultimately will get the Randy Orton treatment. The way they were treating Sammy tonight, I started thinking to myself, I might be onto something. But we will see. We will see. But, MJF gives Sammy this big-ass jacket that's way too big. Everybody is laughing. It's a funny joke. It's funny. But then MJF, he wants to make an announcement. He brings Jericho out there. He comes out with the inner circle. The fans live in attendance, singing along with Judas, which I know, some people out there, they're stand-up comedians whenever the fans do. See my point? When the Jericho cruise went down, because there was so many guys going, tons of people on social media making fun of all the guys on the trip, calling it a sausage fest, simply because they just could not see people having fun. You have fans live at AEW tonight, all singing in unison Judas, even if you don't like the song, even if you're not an AEW fan. You have the stand-up comedians tonight making fun of the fans singing Judas. You see what I mean? It's just like, if you don't like it, if you're subliminally jealous, then talk about something that you do like instead of talking about what other people like. Because the funny thing about it is, how you trigger those people? You make fun of the things that they like. Then you see how fast they become apprehensive. But so anyway, he brings out Jericho in the inner circle, and MJF can't get the words out. And to me, it was a little bit dopey. MJF, and I wrote it down so I didn't make a mistake. He kind of, sort of, maybe hypothetically, almost possibly wants to join the Inner Circle. MJF is awesome on the mic. He's smooth, but, remember when I said recently about I don't want to see these Fonzie moments? Remember Fonzie? Talk about an outdated reference. He couldn't say the word wrong. I was like he had Tourette's. Hey. I was and MJF not being able to spit the words out. I don't know. It went too long. Then it ends up they challenge each other. MJF challenges Chris Jericho to a steak dinner, and the official title of it is Le Dîner Debonair. Le Dîner Debonair. They're going to have a steak dinner in a restaurant next week. Now, what are the chances the waiter gets his ass kicked? Maybe somebody sitting at a different table gets his ass kicked. I was I know. Look, is probably going to be comedy gold next week with them. But, this was the announcement. It was a little cheesy. But I am looking forward to what goes down next week. So, yeah, Dorian. He couldn't say it to Pinky Tuscadero. I thought Pinky was hot back then. I thought Pinky was hot. So, I remember those tight pants and everything. I don't know if she's still alive. If she's still alive, can you imagine what that looks like right now? Her hair, especially if she had the same hair, she probably would look like what Mrs. Roper used to look like, add 30 years to it. Or if you ever have like a Brillo pad in your sink and you've used it so much that there's just like Brillo flying everywhere, that's probably what her hair looks like right now. So, anyway, so they could have a steak dinner next week. All right, whatever. Cody versus Orange Cassidy for the TNT Championship. Started with the usual antics. By the way, Cody is back to blonde hair. The game show stuff is done. So he's back to the blonde hair, which is fine. Cody wants a collar and elbow tie-up with Orange Cassidy. Orange Cassidy will have none of it, puts his hands in his pockets. But then again, Orange Cassidy does lock up. So for the first time ever in AEW, Orange Cassidy, collar and elbow tie-up. Match started out slow. You had the Dark Order get involved, minus Brody Lee. They end up getting ejected. The match went 20 minutes, went to a time limit draw. It started out slow, a lot of gaga, picked up towards the end. And towards the end, they were teasing that Orange Cassidy could possibly win the match. And Orange Cassidy had Cody pinned in the center of the ring. But before the referee could count to three, I know what you're saying. Feels like a WWE match. Before he could count to three. 1, 2, time limit. Can't count to three. Now, I will tell you, as soon as it ended in a 20-minute draw, my immediate reaction was, you have the pay-per-view, I think it's November 7th. I think it's November 7th, Full Gear. I think it's November 7th. Yes, November 7th. Have these guys fight at Full Gear. Rematch at Full Gear. Instead, they are advertising a rematch between the two of them in 2 weeks, the same night that WWE has Halloween Havoc. In my opinion, thank you, Dorian. Sorry to go back a little bit. Pinky Tuscadero is still with us, and she is 77 years old. Good for her, man. Good for her. I'm going to actually, before I go to sleep tonight, I'm going to go, I want to see what she looks like now. So, good for her, man. Look, my mom is 72. So, she's only 5 years older than my mom. So, anyway. So, in my opinion, I want to see Cody versus Orange Cassidy at Full Gear. I have a feeling 2 weeks from now, it may end without a decisive winner once again. And I think at Full Gear, you will have an added stipulation to it, and that will determine the winner. I don't think Orange Cassidy will end up with the TNT Championship, but I will say this, even though the match started really slow, it picked up towards the end, and you were left wanting more between the two. Again, they're doing it in 2 weeks to go against Halloween Havoc, but I truthfully believe that this is a match that AEW should consider at Full Gear. So now we have more backstage antics with Lance Archer and Moxley. Earlier tonight, I forgot. Britt Baker and Tony Schiavone, pre-recorded segment, they're in a spa together. And let's be honest, I think we could all say safely that Britt Baker and Schiavone have some great chemistry with each other. They're both in a spa, and, you know, they got the towel over them, and they're getting the facial. And then Britt Baker realizes that Tony Schiavone is naked, and she's screaming at the top of her lungs, Reba, you know, with all due respect, she's a horrible actress, you know, entertainer, whatever you want to call it. It's just awful. You know, even when she's screaming, pretending like somebody's naked, she looks like she's about to crack up. But then they show Schiavone getting his chest hair waxed, and it was funny. It was funny, man. We didn't see little Tony. I didn't see little Tony. I wasn't looking for little Tony. But it was a funny segment. It's about Britt Baker being a bitch. She's going to be back in action next week. And it was a funny segment. It really was. Later on in the night, Tony Schiavone interviewed Matt Hardy, who was ringside with his family. Matt Hardy announced that he is cleared to return. Then we got something that I don't know how people are going to react to it. Sammy Guevara is on the screen. And very, like, matter of fact, like, oh, by the way, I was the person that attacked you a couple of weeks ago. Man, talk about like an angle that just like flopped. And Sammy Guevara, you know, is not done with Matt Hardy. And I think a lot of us, you know, you talk about thinking the NXT title is cursed. I think Sammy Guevara and Matt Hardy feud is cursed. I don't understand why they're ripping that scab again. Let it heal, move on. It almost feels like they have nothing else for Sammy. They have nothing else for Matt Hardy. So we'll just put them both back together again. I don't know what they're going to do unless we get some major swerve. And maybe there's a little sign of respect after all of this is over. I don't know. But I will say the segment with Guevara and Matt Hardy today was very good, though. The way they set it up, it was very good. Just no high spots, please. They should be able to, you know, still knock it out of the park without doing anything crazy, high risk like that. Unless they do a gimmick thing and it's pre-recorded. That could very well happen. Maybe they go to the Hardy compound. Just an idea. Now we get the announcement of a four-way number one contenders match next week to determine the new number one contenders for FTR's title. I think we all knew one of the tag teams that was going to be in this. But what they did was they had like one of those spinner things, you know, that like the lottery things, and they had some papers inside there. I don't know if there was anything actually written on them or if they were color-coded, but basically they would claim they were pulling names at random, and the four teams announced we're going to be in a match against each other with the winner facing FTR Full Gear. And the four teams that are pulled, First Private Party is pulled. John Silver and Alex Reynolds of the Dark Order is pulled. Butcher and the Blade. And then much against Shivani's satisfaction, the Young Bucks. So every team that was announced, they would enter the ring. The Young Bucks enter the ring, and they not looking to super kick Shivani or anyone else. They basically nail the Blade, and they nailed one of the members of Dark Order. They throw the spinning thing outside the ring, and it looks like the Young Bucks in private party, that they're shaking hands, sign of respect, and then the Young Bucks super kick them. And, that's to set up the match from next week. So next week we have Le Dino Debonair. In 2 weeks we got Orange Cassidy and Cody. And then we have the 2 tournaments starting next week. So Hikaru Shida, as I said earlier, beating Big Swole. Fun match. Didn't go all that long. But it was good while it lasted. And Moxley defending the AEW Heavyweight title against Lance Archer. Eddie Kingston goes on commentary wearing an old Expos Vladimir Guerrero shirt. And he's on commentary during the match. And, man, you looked at the time. And obviously they needed a minute or two for Kingston to cut his promo on Moxley after. But, man, the match started great. You had tables, you had chairs, a lot of violence, a lot of brawling. But the end of the match was so uneventful. Basically, the best... Look, I love how Lance Archer almost does like the reverse Razor's Edge. Calls it the blackout. Lance Archer hits the blackout for a 2 count. And then Moxley just rolls him up and pins him. I looked at the clock and I'm like, talk about a rush of an ending. I mean, I understand, they did it like very abrupt and they're trying not to have Lance Archer lose any credibility. But, man, it was so rushed at the end because they only had 2 minutes left. They wanted Kingston to enter the ring. He showed up with the Lucha Bros, and he's showing respect for Moxley, talking about how, they were up and down the road together, and he's got respect for him, and he's like, he wants to hold his hand up in the air. You knew where this was going. Basically, Kingston, clotheslines him, ends up choking out Moxley, makes him quote-unquote unconscious. And I guess we're going to see Moxley versus Kingston. I have no complaints about Kingston. Eddie Kingston is great. But, man, what a crap finish for Moxley and Archer. Was not feeling it. Was not feeling it at all. So they left Moxley laying, and that's how AEW went off the air. Was not all that good. Not all that good. I mean, it had some moments tonight, but overall, to me, for an anniversary show, a little disappointing. Disappointing. NXT, very uneventful as well. You had the opening match, Bobby Fish and Roderick Strong, defeating Danny Burch and Oney Lorcan. They are now the number 1 contenders for Breezango's tag titles. This was the match that I have been complaining for the last couple of weeks. Why didn't this happen sooner? The match, as NXT does with every week now, 20, 25 minutes with commercials every week. This formula. Opening match, 20, 25 minutes. Crap, minute, 2, 3 minutes at most. After that, then you go back to a long match again. Then you get quick shit again. Then you get the final match. It's the same formula every week. The fans, it was interesting because the fans were all behind Undisputed Era, and then when they won, you're looking at Thunderdome and people are giving them a thumbs down. But Benjamin's asking me, would I rather have a 20-minute match or a 20-minute promo? I want things to be mixed up a little bit. I don't want the same goddamn formula week after week after week because it becomes very predictable. You know you're going to get 2 commercial breaks. You know it's going to be a really long match, probably longer than it was needed. You know, I just mix it up a little bit. Make it a little bit unpredictable. Every week, it's the same thing. Every week. No, Joseph, I'm only going for another 15 minutes, and I'm out of here. So, 15 minutes. So maybe 20 at the most. I'm going to be done by 12:30. So, but it's the same formula. It was a great match. But to be honest with everybody out there, do you think, really, Danny Burch and Oney Lorcan are going to pop a rating no matter who they're facing? That's why I get into the quarter-hour ratings every week. There are the same usual suspects that have never connected with the fans that don't pop ratings. And although this was a great match, I mean, you look how WWE advertised it. No marquee, no billing, no graphics, no nothing. You know, and it just felt, like there was no momentum. You had this odd, stipulation a couple of weeks ago that quote-unquote Fandango came up with where, one member of each team teams up, and it was a mess. Again, you're doing all these tournaments and clusterfuck finishes. So we now have our new number 1 contenders. I have nothing against Bobby Fish and Roderick Strong. They're extremely entertaining. I'm glad the Undisputed Era is not split yet. But, still, same formula. Same formula every week. We get a medical update on Finn Balor. William Regal, as I said earlier, taking the wait-and-see approach. Okay. But you know what I said earlier? I'm very concerned. I don't think he's going to be keeping his title. I think WWE right now, as I said earlier, I think they just don't know what to do or who to put it on. Ember Moon, vignette on her about her journey back to NXT, talking about her crap last year and a half. I'm happy she's back, but, people need to understand. When Ember Moon was in NXT before, she had a lot of momentum. Fans were really behind. I'm not saying that the fans ever left her, but she was riding some great momentum out of NXT onto the main roster. Problem is, once on the main roster, she didn't get the opportunities a lot of people thought she was going to get. And just when you thought she started to get a little momentum, it would be taken away. Then she got injured. So she's got to rebuild all that. So a lot of fans that are seeing Ember Moon right now, it's not as big of a deal that WWE thinks. So they have to repair that. Jake Atlas beating Ashante Adonis, and here's what I said earlier about it feeling very random. Raul Mendoza, Joaquin Wilde, they show up at ringside. Ashante Adonis is distracted. As a result, Jake Atlas rolls him up and pins him. Then Joaquin Wilde and Raul Mendoza are attacking Adonis after the match, and Jake Atlas tries to make the save. Santos Escobar hits the ring, so you now got 3-on-2, and Isaiah Swerve Scott comes out with a chair, 3 chairs, and they chase off El Hijo del Fantasma. So you can pretty much guarantee next week we're probably going to have a 3-on-3. Johnny Gargano versus Austin Theory. Again, the template of a typical NXT episode. Here's another match. It was a great match. To me, it went a lot longer than it was needed, especially with the way they've used Austin Theory lately. But, after the match was over, when Gargano's showing respect, signs of respect to to Austin Theory, saying, not bad, not bad. This is going to lead somewhere. I don't know what as of yet, but, Johnny Gargano hitting the one final beat for the pinfall. A decent match, but, you got to also understand. We've talked about Gargano with the ratings, which unfortunately has not been strong. They have kind of buried Austin Theory for a while now. So how do you expect fans to really get behind this match all that much? When the quarter-hour ratings come out, I'm going to be very, very interested to see the quarter hour for that match. So then we see Rhea Ripley and Raquel Gonzalez brawling in the back, and that match has been set up. I think it's set up for Halloween Havoc. I think is it next week or Halloween Havoc? Yeah, I think it's Halloween Havoc. Yeah, they're going to fight a Halloween Havoc. We also got something interesting. What's up, Nathan? Zaya Lee. William Regal announces the Raquel Gonzalez-Rhea Ripley match at Halloween Havoc. And Zaya Lee is almost, it was interesting because he's basically telling William Regal that she has to have a match. Almost like someone is forcing her to have a match. And William Regal keeps saying, that he'll take it under consideration. She wants the grudge match. He'll take it under consideration. So, we'll see. I mean, Zaya Lee, this little bit of an attitude change, I don't know where it's going to go. But, hey, we have talked about in the past how they have kind of misused Zaya Lee. So maybe this is her opportunity now. Problem is, you got to look at it in the big picture. There's a lot of names above her. So I don't know how far this goes. But to me, it's better than anything. Her being backed by CCP, I don't know about that, to be honest with you. But, hey, it's a little storyline for her. It's a little storyline. So we'll see. We had Toni Storm having a match. And first Robert Stone comes out with Aaliyah. Not mentioning Mercedes Martinez by name, but basically Robert Stone saying that someone else's, their loss will be someone else's gain. And you have Toni Storm come out, take on Aaliyah. Very quick match. Toni Storm getting the win. Aaliyah is okay, but, when she's standing there waiting to take a move, it was a little bit cacas, to be honest with you. Toni Storm is great. And Toni Storm, I'm telling you, I think they're going to put the Rockets behind her. I think she's going to be the next big NXT star to break out. So we'll see what happens. Shotzi Blackheart versus Candice LeRae. And, Prince Albert's, I think Aaliyah is already NXT enhancement. I hate to say that, but it kind of feels that way already. So, Shotzi Blackheart versus Candice LeRae, as I opened up with tonight's show, talking about it. You have WWE, and if you go back, just look at the match results for NXT for the last 2 or 3 months. It's only 12 weeks. Go back the last 12 weeks and look at the results for NXT TV for the last 3 months. When you realize how many long, great matches that ended up with a clusterfuck finish. Last week, we had an awesome match with Ciampa and Kushida just to have it fried by Velveteen Dream interfering. You had Cameron Grimes tonight, interfering in Damian Priest versus Dexter Loomis. I mean, look, there have been clusterfuck finishes in NXT's history, but at this rate, I don't recall that at all. It is constant. It is always. It is becoming the norm for them. And I'm telling you, this is not it's cheap. It's cheap. It's like somebody interferes with the match, therefore those people will have a match. That's what it is. You're going to see Dexter Loomis versus Cameron Grimes. You're going to see Kushida versus Velveteen Dream again. You're going to see, and that's what it is. So Shotzi takes on Candice LeRae. The winner faces Io Shirai at Halloween Havoc. Shotzi is already hosting it, as I said earlier, so I think a lot of us figured Candice LeRae was going to win. But once again, they're having a phenomenal match. And just to have the cheap finish, because Indy Hartwell was sitting around ringside and she handed something to Candice LeRae, I don't know, brass knucks or whatever it was, and she laid out Shotzi Blackheart with it. So we don't know why Indy Hartwell is helping Candice LeRae like she is, but Candice LeRae gets the win. So, the match went a little bit longer than it was needed, and then you had the bullshit finish. So finally, we have 2 more matches. Here's another one that confused the shit out of me. Wasn't the whole selling point for Drake Maverick, for Killian Dane to team up is they won? So they team up this week to have a match against Imperium, and they lose. I don't get that. They just won, and it was such a big deal last week that they won, and they have them lose this week. And then to basically, before you could even let that digest, Everrise hits the ring. They're teasing Drake Maverick. They have him in a corner. They're about to beat the crap out of Drake Maverick, and Killian Dane gets on the mic and says that the only person that could put their hands on Drake Maverick is him. Nobody hits you but me. And Killian Dane basically, gets Everrise out of there. And then we get the 80s music and everything, but I don't know, man. It's just, I agree with you, James. It feels dead in the water already. I mean, if you didn't want Imperium to lose tonight, then maybe they shouldn't have faced Imperium, in my opinion. It just, the whole idea of last week was, look, we're a team, we won. Without each other, we lose. Together, we won. And then they lose. I don't like it, in my opinion. Main event, Damian Priest retaining the North American Championship over Dexter Loomis. Fun match. I've said for a long time now, Dexter Loomis is my favorite NXT star. Was Keith Lee, moved on to Dexter Loomis. I know a lot of you say, it should be Karrion Kross. Unfortunately, he hasn't been there long enough, and he got injured. So one day he will be. But Dexter Loomis is my favorite right now. And it was a great match. And my God, my favorite spot of the night, I don't know if you caught it towards the end, Dexter Loomis and Damian Priest are both laid out in the middle of the ring. Dexter Loomis springs up like Shawn Michaels does. And when he springs up, before he even could land, he springs up and then does a leg drop onto Damian Priest. I mean, it just looks so awesome. That guy's got it. And the interesting thing is that if you check out, he had a cameo. I don't know if the cameo is still up, but, his cameos are pretty cool, by the way. And, actually, the Kip Up. But, for the next prize we give away on Wednesday, I was thinking about this earlier because I could actually get something set up. What do you guys think about a future prize being like a cameo where somebody wins and gets like a 5-minute call from somebody in AEW or maybe someone else, because not a lot of AEW stars have cameos, but there's a few people there that I could pull a couple of strings and maybe we'll give away like a 5-minute cameo. They'll talk to whoever wins. So just an idea. I wanted to think of something a little bit different. So, the match was going great. And then towards the end, Dexter Loomis is near the edge of the ropes, underneath the ropes, and Cameron Grimes shows up, stomps both feet into Dexter Loomis, hides under the ring, and then Damian Priest hits his finisher, and we go off the air. Again, you think of the 3 big matches in the last 2 weeks. Kushida, Ciampa, Blackheart, LeRae, Priest, Loomis. They all had great long matches, just to have a cheap run-in finish. The thing that made people so attractive to NXT was that it was different than WWE. You just pushed this Capitol Wrestling Center bullshit. And in 2 weeks from announcing the Capitol Wrestling Center, it feels like Capitol Wrestling Entertainment. Too many run-ins, too many clusterfuck finishes, too much of the same formula, the same template every week. Open up the show, match that goes on a little too long, good, but then ends with bullshit. Vignette, 2-minute match, vignette, 2-minute match, long match, 1 2-minute match, main event, long match, ends in clusterfuck. That's their formula. You go back the last 12 weeks, it'll blow your mind how predictable that is. And like I said, I'm fine with long matches, but mix it up a little bit. Make it a little bit unpredictable. So the ratings this week, I'll tell you, man, even though it was a 1-year anniversary of Dynamite, there wasn't a lot of matches that I was feeling this week. Swole Shida was okay, but, it didn't really grab my attention. Moxley Archer was very good until the end, which was awful. What a crap finish. FTR versus Best Friends, I honestly didn't care all that much about. Cody versus Orange Cassidy was probably my favorite match of the night. And I don't mind the 20-minute time limit draw because we get to see more of that. So I think hour 1 for AEW is going to do pretty good. Hour 2, I think you're going to see some decline. I think AEW this week, I think they break 800,000, but I say very barely break 800,000. I'm going to say like 822. 822. I just can't see it popping a crazy rating this week. Hype or no hype. 822. NXT this week, the Toni Storm match was, average, but it was good to see her back in NXT. The other matches were solid, but with crap finishes. So I can't see NXT doing a spectacular rating either, because even the names that would kind of pull your attention were all absent. No Kushida, no Ciampa, no Dream. You didn't really further the Adam Cole storyline. You're trying to milk weeks out of this. If AEW did 820, 828 or 822, then NXT, man, I can't see it going over 700,000 viewers. I think NXT is going to do like 677. I can't see them get, and if you've noticed, I have gotten the NXT rating within 10,000 viewers the last couple of weeks. AEW have been hit and miss on, but I don't know. This week had a lot more potential, and it felt like it underwhelmed, in my honest opinion. It underwhelmed. So anyway, in 9 days, we have Bound for Glory. We're going to leave here in about 5 minutes, but very quickly, current matches for those that are interested. Eric Young defends the Impact Heavyweight Championship. I don't mean to laugh, but taking on Rich Swann. You have Deonna Purrazzo defending the Knockouts title against Kylie Ray. You have a four-way tag team match for the Impact tag titles. The Motor City Machine Guns defend the belts against the Good Brothers, the North, Ace Austin, and Man Fulton. That's actually, I'm looking forward to that. Rohit Raju defends the X Division Championship in an intergender scramble match. He takes on Chris Bay, Jordan Grace, TJP, Trey, and Willie Mack. You have EC3 versus Moose, which I'm looking forward to. Eddie Edwards versus Ken Shamrock. And your Call Your Shot Gauntlet. It'll be a Bound for Gold gauntlet match where the winner could choose any championship match of their choice. So, we will see. We will see. Now, before I go, speaking of Impact Wrestling, we've talked about Joey Ryan with all these lawsuits. He's filed now 6 lawsuits, I believe, suing for extraordinary amounts of money, which, you know, as I've said before, I'm in the insurance business. I've seen lawsuits pass through my desk, people asking for money like you wouldn't believe. Some of the lawsuits I could understand, and some of them, you know, are just ridiculous. Always millions of dollars. I mean, so, look, Joey Ryan suing for what he's asking for, or Candy Cartwright, that's what lawyers do. They put crazy amounts of money on the table, hoping that, you know, the defendants will settle. And if they don't settle and it goes in front of a jury, a lot of times if the jury feels that something happened, but they don't feel the plaintiff deserves anything, Joey Ryan could win some of these lawsuits and be awarded $1. So Joey Ryan now sues Impact Wrestling. Breach of contract. He's suing them for $10 million. Monopoly money. And he brings up certain clauses that Anthem did not follow the mechanisms required in Joey Ryan's contract for warning, reprimanding, and terminating his employment. And I'm not going to spend all but 2-3 minutes on this, but I want to make just one very important point. Basically, what Joey Ryan does is in the court documents, he shows part of his contract with Impact Wrestling. And there's a whole bunch of areas where it explains grounds for termination. And one of the grounds in Article 8 in the contract says that a wrestler can be terminated if they commit any act with the promoter believes in its reasonable business judgment that would damage the wrestler or promoter's reputation and or that of its affiliate, licenses, or assigns, otherwise damages the value or integrity of the programs, works, merchandise, blah, 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 blah. Okay. Then it says that a wrestler could be grounds for termination if a wrestler commits any act which places or could place the wrestler or the promoter in a patently negative light, or, and this is what he's focusing on, this right here, any instance of a violation for which a wrestler has already received a warning, reprimand, or notification provided. However, that in the case of a breach under paragraphs A, B, F, and G, okay? Here's the meat of it. A promoter shall provide the wrestler with written notice of a breach and a 5-day cure period. Gives the wrestler 5 days to resolve the problem. If the wrestler is unable to resolve the problem, and I'm ad-libbing some of this to make it easy to understand, if the wrestler does not resolve the problem, cure the problem within those 5 days, then despite exercising diligent efforts to resolve the problem, then the parties shall make good faith efforts for a period of not less than 30 days to work together in good faith to resolve the matter. If they cannot, after 30 days in good faith, resolve the matter, then the promoter shall be entitled to terminate the agreement upon the expiration of such 30-day period. Basically, what this guy is saying is that Impact Wrestling never gave him notice, never gave him time to resolve the problem, even though I don't know what. See, this is where Joey Ryan gets it wrong. Joey Ryan never provided what Impact Wrestling told him as the reason for his termination. If a promoter, how many times in the 18-year history of TNA and Impact Wrestling, how many times has a wrestler been released? Dozens? 100 wrestlers? 150 wrestlers? Does a wrestler, are they owed an explanation? Do you think all these WWE wrestlers that were let go early this year, do you think they were told specifics? They were told that they were making cutbacks. Joey Ryan never provided what Impact Wrestling gave him as the reason for his termination. So Joey Ryan is assuming that he did something wrong to warrant his termination. Some of us would call it guilty conscience. So the thing is, Andy wants me and his jury. Bottom line is, I understand why Joey Ryan is doing this. He can't clear his name. He can't. Unless a whole group of nuns come out and say, I dated Joey Ryan and he was wonderful, he treated me well, and there's no woman that's come out to defend Joey Ryan. How do you defend the indefensible? Joey Ryan, with all pun intended, is fucked for the rest of his life. His rest of his wrestling life he is done. As an entertainer, this will keep following him also. So his lawsuit is to try to get people to retract. The problem is there's too many. Even if they all retract their statements, everybody in the wrestling world is going to feel that they retracted their statements to avoid having to hire a lawyer, paying crazy amounts of money, defending themselves in court. And Joey Ryan's career is still fucked. So Joey Ryan is hoping that with Impact Wrestling or maybe some other areas, that they might settle for a little bit of money. So he gets something out of this. But in the end, Joey Ryan, I think, is playing Russian roulette with this because additional details of what he did are going to come out. You know, some of these women, you know, when they did the hashtag speaking out and they posted a couple of paragraphs of things that went down, they didn't get into every little detail as far as things that he did. So there's probably a lot more out there that we don't even know about as far as what he did. Look, if it was one person or two people, then I'd say, hey, you know, who knows? And if you remember, I said from the beginning, being a creep is not illegal. If he talked a good game and made these women feel comfortable and he said he was depressed and this and that just so they could have a little sympathy on him and he would get sympathy pussy out of this, that might be a creep, but it's not illegal. You go to a club and you lie through your teeth just to try to impress some girl you don't know so you could try to get laid, and then she finds out you're a phony, you're a creep. But you shouldn't lose your livelihood over it. The problem is that in Joey Ryan's case, you know, people aren't forced to hire him. And all Anthem has to do is say, look, we're in the middle of fucking COVID. We weren't doing events at that time. So we terminated his contract. All right. I know what you're going to say. If it looks like a duck and it sounds like a duck and it quacks like a duck, then it must be a duck. So Joey Ryan could go to court and say, look, everybody, you know, yes, we're in COVID, but you don't find it, you know, too coincidental that these accusations come out against me and then all of a sudden I lose my opportunity in Impact Wrestling. So yeah, it may look like a duck and it may sound like a duck and it may quack like a duck. But unfortunately, if Joey Ryan does not show anything in writing where Impact terminated him because of those accusations, he's got a big fat goose egg. He's got a big fat goose egg. That's my opinion on this. I don't think the lawsuits stop here. I think he will go after some other people in the wrestling business for defamation. Even if this all gets resolved, nobody's going to trust Joey Ryan anymore. Can you imagine hiring this guy and then you got to worry that if he sucks or he ain't drawing you any money, you have to worry that if you release him and you don't give like a specific perfect excuse that this guy could try to take you to court? This guy's wrestling career is pretty much over. There'll always be a promotion out there that will probably hire him down the line, but this is all a money grab, in my honest opinion. He's trying to defend the indefensible, and there's too many people out there that are coming up with the same scenario. He's a creep. He's a creep. He's a creep that enjoyed sex. That's how I look at it. Should he be banned from wrestling because of it? That's not for me to say because I'm not a promoter. I don't work for a wrestling company. But if a wrestling company is trying to avoid controversy, is trying to avoid toxic people, then I could see why not many people want to book him. Joey Ryan, at the end of the day, Joey Ryan screwed Joey Ryan. I mean, I hope the sex was worth it. I hope the sex was good. Seriously. I hope it was really good, because him being, a creep and a pig, although not illegal, unfortunately in the end, especially in this culture, this environment we live in, people will not hire people sometimes simply because, of their personality. And they don't want controversy. Unfortunately, that you can't be sued over that. You know what I mean? Like, you could try to sue somebody over that, but Joey Ryan, in the end, I'll tell you, as soon as the COVID excuse comes out, a lot of his lawsuits are dead in the water. He can't prove that he would have made this money over the last 8 months, 6 months, or whatever it is. There's so many people out there that haven't made nothing because of COVID. So he's got to show proof. He's got to show evidence that he was going to make this money, and he can't. And losing followers on social media, unless you question every person who unsubscribed, unfollowed him, unless you get a statement from every person that says, I unfollowed you because of these accusations, he's got no case. He's got none. He can't even prove if those followers were fake followers. Every so often, Twitter does audits, and Twitter will, you'll see some people have a big drop in their followers because Twitter removes fake accounts, inactive accounts. Guy can't prove any of that. So, anyway, I just told it to you to the point. Hopefully we won't have to talk about it again unless something concrete happens as a result. I am out of here. I hope you enjoy the rest of your evening. Enjoy your Thursday. Thursday is the only night that I don't have to do a show. Well, it's not that I don't have to do a show. I enjoy doing these shows, but I invite everyone, if you're not aware of it already, Saturday night, we are doing game night on Discord. Mish and I will be hosting it. Jackbox 7 is being released, I think, today, since we're now in Thursday. And I already have the game bought. Bought it a month and a half ago. So we are going Jackbox crazy Saturday night. You are all welcome to play with us. All I ask is you have a little bit of a thick skin and you laugh a little bit, because, we have a lot of fun, and, unfortunately some people never show up because they can't handle, very thin-skinned. Got to be able to take a joke, especially when people gang up on you in some of the games and, get you killed in the game. So I can't wait, man. It's going to be so much fun. Yeah, Daz, what can his accusers prove? I'm telling you, a lot of this is just hearsay, but pattern's going to show. He's a creep, and nobody's forced to hire him. He might be able to settle a little here and there, but he ain't got nothing out of this. All it's going to do is prevent other people from hiring him, because it's too much of a risk. They don't want to have to deal with bullshit lawsuits, and, so many people have been released in wrestling over the years, and these people file lawsuits. Get the fuck out of here. Everyone, much love as always. Sorry for my botched intro, but, I had an audio setting that was a little off tonight. So I want to thank you all for tuning in. Please post your feedback about both shows tonight. Agree, disagree with anything that I said. If you enjoyed the show, give it a thumbs up on YouTube. If you haven't done so already, subscribe and, hit that bell. So when I start uploading videos, you'll be notified right away. And I will see you all. And just so you all know, Friday night is my 8-year anniversary, to say it bluntly. I want to get me some Friday night. So I'll be up here normally right after SmackDown, but I would say by 11:30, I will be leaving this show and entering a horror show in another room. So everyone, much love as always. Thank you as always for the support. Nothing but, straight up convo here. No clickbait, no, fake crap. We just tell it like it is. And I thank you for tuning in tonight. So be well, stay safe, and I'll catch you all again Friday after SmackDown. Ciao.